Hi there, Michaela with Michaela's Counseling here. I've been getting emails and comments lately about a blog post that people stumbled on about this book here. This is Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, which I'm reading as if you can't read it with it right in front of you. Pete Walker book, and it looks like there's more search traffic happening and more people are finding some of my posts about him. And so I know this is of interest to a bunch of you. I'm diving back into the book again and remembering just how rich it is. I want to start talking a little bit about, Pete talks about these 4 different survival styles that people develop when they're growing up in childhoods where really, where they end up feeling very frightened and where they end up feeling very alone. And like, what kinds of things do people learn to do to cope with the terror that they feel, or with the reality of emotional needs that are going unmet? When you're growing up with a family and you can't leave, you can't level with your parents and ask them to meet your needs differently, and so you end up doing one of 4 different things to get through really tough situations like this. And Pete's characterizations of it overlap with some ways that other modalities have characterized it too. So you'll recognize fight and flight response, right? And then there's the freeze response, where actually, like, there's a lot of energy that happens in your body. There's a lot of adrenaline, and yet you're immobilized. So it can look like another response, which would be to just submit or collapse. But those two are a little different in that one has very high adrenaline, high activation, and the other, you wilt within yourself. Now, Pete actually talks about fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses, which I find just fascinating. Sensory motor psychotherapy calls that what Pete would call the fawn response, submit. But I like the word fawn because it gets across kind of more of a connotation, I think, of like when you've learned to try to kind of please the people around you. Like, let's say that you grew up in with parents who desperately needed your affirmation, or who maybe did things that were scary but then got mad if you acted scared or if you acted sad, or if you had parents that really needed you to really meet their emotional needs. What happens is you end up learning how to kind of ingratiate and how to please. And fun is a fascinating response because I think a lot of us who become healing professionals, a lot of people who are like some of the best nurses, doctors, teachers, just nurturing, healing people, they're using some of the skills that actually go along with a fawn response. And with a fawn response, it's the skill set isn't the problem. It's that you've learned to use it excessively because a part of you is so afraid of what will happen if people around you aren't pleased. And so rather than really giving from kind of this core sense of like, oh, I really want to reach out to this person, there can be another part of you that actually, compels you to be nice, even if you're angry, maybe especially when you're angry. So fawn, it can mean to ingratiate. It can mean to try to like curry favor from. And it is, for one thing, I want to say that some people feel really ashamed of some of the defenses that they've developed. And whether yours is fight, flight, freeze, and I'll be getting to those others in other videos, or fawn, thank goodness that you learned ways to get through what was a really difficult childhood. If you've learned to fawn a lot, and if you find yourself doing like a lot of people pleasing and trying to figure out what others want and kind of camouflaging, what it tells us and what it can tell you is that you learned to do that. You learned that it was really important to try to blend in and to try to make sure that others didn't find fault with you, or maybe even so that they didn't notice you too much unless you were doing something to meet their needs. So it's a very important reaction for us to be able to pay attention to together. Like, if you find if you got all tangled in that sentence, if you ended up coming to therapy like with me, we pay a lot of attention to. I've had clients who are so ingratiating, and they know how to say all the right things to a counselor, and so my goodness, they can be so flattering, and sometimes they're afraid to even ask for something like a glass of water, or to ask me to sit further away if I'm feeling close. And so with those clients, sometimes we end up developing kind of jokes around how it is hard for them to ask for what they need, but over time, they become better and better at being assertive and really noticing like what they really want, like what they want from relationships, what they want from counseling, what they want in their work. And so it is really, really cool to work with people with this response, because beyond their attempts to please, there's often a lot of anger that once we tap into it, they feel much stronger and much more confident. And these are people who've learned actually to work pretty well with others. And what we want to do is just help that fear piece of that skill set relax so that you can actually really shine and you can be who you are with confidence. So, a fawn response, it's a really interesting one to work with. And if you have it, thank goodness that you learned to develop that to assess and kind of attend to the people around you. And over time, with the healing that you do, you'll be able to really feel your own boundaries and to really have a sense that people really care about you for who you are and not just what you can do for them. And that is a really cool change, really liberating. Let me know what you've noticed with the fawn response in yourself or others, or kind of how you would describe it or characterize it. This is my first video on this particular response, and it's being done on kind of a stream of that. So I just love knowing what resonates, what doesn't, and I look forward to talking with you more in upcoming videos. Thank you.